Hello. Welcome to another chapter in the story of Muscatine's sister city relationships around the world. I'm Dan Clark, your host. I'm pleased to have with me today two guests, both former presidents of Muscatine's Sister Cities Association, Bob Fiedler. Bob was president 1991-92.
Yes.
And his wife, Cindy Holst. Cindy was president 1994 to 1996. They live in western Colorado now and have for a number of years, so we're lucky to have them back in the studio today. I thought, let you guys welcome the audience, and then we'll show some pictures and talk about them.
Well, welcome, I guess. We brought along some photos from the exchanges in Japan, and some of them were taken by newspapers in Japan, and some were taken by our Japanese friends, as well as some of our exchange people. So hopefully you'll enjoy seeing some of them as we go along.
I don't have any photos to share, but I can share my experiences, and adding Cindy's welcome, it's nice to be home. And we look forward to this, and Dan has been most gracious in asking us to express our opinions and our experiences. So we'll be glad to do that, and hope that you get some entertainment and some information out of this.
So as Cindy has said, she was one of our early experts on Japan, went to Japan. Cindy, how many times did you go to Japan? Or have you counted?
Well, maybe 9 or 10.
And we'll get into that further. But if we get our producer to start showing those pictures, we'll leave each one on the screen a few seconds and let you comment on them, and then we'll go back to the conversation.
This is the view of Mount Fuji taken by one of our Japanese exchange friends from Ichikawa Daimon, which is now Ichikawa Misato-cho, looking at Mount Fuji, which sits on the southern half of Yamanashi Prefecture.
Which is Iowa's sister state.
Yes, Iowa's sister state. This is a view looking out from the hill in the springtime down into Ichikawa Misato-cho. And as you can see, the cherry blossoms, and the mountains there to the west are the Minami Alps, or the Southern Alps of Japan.
Southern Alps.
Mm-hmm. And this is a picture looking toward Mount Fuji from the north side of Ichikawa Misato-cho along the river, the Fujikawa River, and that's a bridge going into Ichikawa Misato-cho. These are some rice fields in the valley in Yamanashi around Ichikawa Misato-cho. And excuse me if I do call it Ichikawa Daimon occasionally, because that was the original name when I first started traveling. And the government changed names and consolidated a lot of townships around in the early 2000s, so the names were consolidated. This is a little close-up of some of the rice fields that we see when we're visiting in the summertime. Thought you might like to see what rice really looks like. And this is another terraced set of rice fields in Ichikawa.
What does the sign say?
Don't ask me a hard question.
I'm sorry. Although your mastery of Japanese amazes me.
I could sit down if I had my kanji translation book, but I can't read that right to you. These are some pictures of some of our exchanges in the past, some of the students that have participated, some of the teachers, picture of the whole group doing YMCA up on the stage in Ichikawa Misato-cho, and a lot of the people you may recognize, or you may recognize yourself.
And this is from a Japanese publication.
Yeah, this is from one of the Yamanashi Prefecture, or actually the Ichikawa town newspaper. And this is Matt Rivera. Some of you may remember Matt on the left, a teacher from West Middle School, and then the whole group is in the center, and this was, I think, a 1994 visit. And then Steve Maher on the right-hand side from West Middle School was the West Middle School delegation leader at the time. We had a lot of kids who had a great time, and we had a really wonderful visit in Ichikawa that year. Dan put this in. This is just a planning schedule for one.
This could apply to any of our sister city exchanges.
This is a planning schedule for one of our visits when we're hosting here in excuse me, in Muscatine.
Wrong town, dear.
Yeah. And this is another photo of some of our exchanges. Japanese students arrive here in Muscatine. I think this is
believe
from
that
the
was the
Journal.
first group of students, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was from the Journal, and we had a group that came in. And Bob and I got involved around that time because we had a large delegation coming in from Yamanashi. Some of them were from the Unitas high school system. And when the students got here to the motel, there weren't enough host stays. So the Red Cross got involved where Bob worked, and we got a lot of people to host, and we had a wonderful experience. And it started out for a lot of people to become directly involved with the program. And in 1990, the Muscatine High School Band, I think 150 members actually, went to Ichikawa Daimoncho at the time and participated in some activities there and in the Yamanashi Prefecture general governing places in Kofu and also at Tokyo Disneyland. And so this was actually the fireworks poster because Yamanashi, particularly in Ichikawa Daimoncho, has a large fireworks festival in August, and this was their big poster for the fireworks festival, which featured Muscatine High School Band. And this is a map of the northern part of Ichikawa Daimoncho, and if you see on the left, that features the fireworks festival, which occurs over the river, and it's a big competition of many firework manufacturing companies, and it's extremely exciting, and our students usually always get to attend that.
It seems to me that we got some 4th of July fireworks from there one year. Either that or else we said, what a great idea.
I think we said it was a really great idea. We had tried to get that, but I don't think that the junior chamber were able to do it. And this is a copy of the city exchange. This is the copy of the hospital agreement, which we made in 1992.
And that was what you were specialized in at the beginning.
Right. We did set up, after we had signed the charter for the two cities and for the high school, then the next time that we got together with them, we set up a charter for the hospital, Muscatine General Hospital at the time, and Ichikawa Daimoncho Municipal Hospital became sister hospitals, and at the same time, West Middle School signed a charter with the Ichikawa Daimoncho Middle School for a sister school exchange. And chronologically, this is the proclamation of the sister city.
Again. No, this is
Was that the hospital?
Yeah, Jonathan Goebel.
Sorry.
Jonathan Goebel.
Okay, this is the proclamation that Jonathan Goebel, the at that time administrator for Muscatine General Hospital, signed with the administrator from Ichikawa Daimon Hospital.
And you may wonder why we have sister cities or sister hospital with Ichikawa Daimon. It's because Cindy worked at the hospital. She was an emergency room nurse, and she also did programming and continuing education, and so she was pretty much responsible for that taking place.
And this is a photo of an exchange that we did in 1992. Myself and Malia Sheepers and Ann Harrison, who was a delegate also from the hospital, we were participating in a tea ceremony, a traditional tea ceremony at the time. And then this is another time when we were there. I think this was after we signed the hospital charter. And that's Deb Carl, who is a nurse in the short stay unit at Muscatine General Hospital, and myself, and the back of the head of the administrator, medical director of the hospital. And this was a welcome banner for one of our many welcoming potlucks here in Grand Junction. Gosh, I'm sorry.
Where do you live?
I live in Grand Junction, Colorado, but this is Muscatine. So this is one of our welcome posters for our now infamous potlucks that we had when we welcomed our students. And interestingly enough, potlucking was not a real popular or even known event in Japan, and once we started having the delegations come in and we had all of these potlucks, they enjoyed them so much that then all of our delegations going to Ichikawa Daimoncho were welcomed and had farewell parties with potlucks. And it was really great fun to have two different kinds of potlucks here in America and then going to Japan and having hibachi barbecue, potlucks, and all kinds of fun. So it was.
And it's quaint now going back in the archives to come across this poster printed on a dot matrix print.
Yeah, when you look back, it's like, whoa, our graphics were pretty bad back in the 90s. And this one, I think, is
just a little bit of a memo, a planning memo, about having a delegation go to the Paula Sands Live show on Channel 6.
Right, yes, we did. When we were in Japan, many times they would take us to Yamanashi Broadcasting, or actually I've been to NHK Broadcasting in Tokyo as well. So we thought it would be really great fun to take them to WOC, which is WQAD now, I think, or whatever.
KWQC.
So KWQC. So we got them on the Paula Sands Live show, and that was a lot of fun. And this is the middle school charter between Ichikawa Middle School and West Middle School.
And this happened while you were president, I think.
Right. Mm-hmm. And this is a group that went to Japan, a bunch of kids and adults. And that one was, I think, in 1994?
96.
96, okay, yeah, I guess there's the big letters on there.
We looked it up.
Oh, good. Anyway, we had a really great experience, and the kids, it's so much fun to go and to be hosted by families where you get to see a lot of things that you're not going to see if you just go to Japan on your own or take a tour bus ride. Kids got to experience a lot of interesting things and go to interesting places. And of course, we always go up Mount Fuji, so all of the kids have had an experience of partially climbing Fuji. We just never had enough time in our tight schedules to climb clear to the top because it takes quite a while, but it was a lot of fun. And this is a picture of Ian Hillman from Muscatine. He basically, what year was that? In 19...
He was in that 96
yeah,
group.
Yeah, but it was
this
in
is
19...
when he was a university student.
Yeah, in 1992, or 1992 to 1993, Ichikawa Daimon High School requested an exchange of teachers to come, and they wanted someone to come and teach English, and they wanted a teacher, and we were not able to get anybody to allow a teacher to be freed up for a year from the district. So we sent, Ian wanted to go, we sent Ian, he was in college at the time. And so Ian spent a year in Ichikawa Daimon teaching English, had a great time, made some great friends, developed a friendship society or a youth group in Ichikawa that was studying and interested in Iowa and the U.S. So he worked very diligently with them. Now Ian is with the U.S. Foreign Service, so it was a very good experience for him. And this is a picture of the Ichikawa Daimon calligraphy park. They have an extensive collection of Chinese calligraphy slate plates from China that are very ancient, and they put them into a very interesting park where you can go around and look at all of them and read about the history, and it's one of their prize pieces of sort of history as well as visitors stop for tourism. And I don't know why that's on there, but anyway, that's
I discovered that in the
signature.
archive last night, and I thought, hey, that introduces our two guests today. And what the heck does it say under your names there, Cindy?
Oh, that's my name.
Oh, that's your
in
name.
Japanese. Mm-hmm.
Very good. Well, I want to drill into the history a little further. Ichikawa Daimon was, and that I'm going to keep saying that because
Yeah,
that's what it was
that's
from
what
the
we
period.
knew it. Yeah.
Ichikawa Daimon was, as I recall the history, probably our second serious relationship, although it was pursued methodically.
Right.
And a lot of groundwork was laid before we had an actual sister city signing. The first, we've talked with Mike Steinmaus. His wife Mary was president when Paysandú, Uruguay became our sister city, and Mayor Walter Belvisi came to visit. And it was even during that period in the late 1980s when this Japan relationship started. Were you involved at all with those earliest days?
Not the first trip. The first trip was in 1987, and I think it was sort of under the auspices of Iowa Sister States to go to Yamanashi. And so a delegation of students and adults went to Kofu, which is the capital of Yamanashi Prefecture.
Sister city of Des Moines.
Yeah, right, it is. And so they went over there and visited and really liked it and thought they would like to pursue some sort of a relationship. So in 1988 and 89, they sent delegations again from Muscatine over to Japan, to Yamanashi Prefecture, and ended up getting selected with Ichikawa Daimoncho at the time to set up a sister city relationship. So they began to develop a relationship and put together a charter in 1989, and it was in 1990 when the band went over that they actually signed the charter at that time. They signed
So
a
the
charter.
band was the third group of...
Actually, it was the fourth group.
We have, I suppose that Japan, or Ichikawa Daimon, Ichikawa Misato,
Yeah.
probably has exchanged more people back and forth than any other relationship we have.
I think so, yes. We had
Certainly, even leaving aside the band, there have been a lot of
right.
trips.
Yeah, we had the band. We've had adult study groups go over to look at senior housing and senior business, and that we also did in conjunction with Iowa sister states. We had the hospital exchanges going on between Ichikawa and Muscatine General. We had the middle school exchanges going on every year between Muscatine and Ichikawa, and we had high school exchanges going on all the time too. And in addition, then we had the Unitas group, which is a private college high school setup in Yamanashi, and actually their headquarters are in Hachioji, which is a suburb of Tokyo. And so we had that going on too, and so they really kind of had a cross exchange group from everybody, and it was very active throughout the whole entire 90s. And I think the reason that it was a fertile ground for exchange at that time was that Japan had decided they needed to internationalize. They were still pretty much insular, and they needed to expand. So at that time, Japan started having what they called the JET program, which was Japanese English teachers coming in. And they had been teaching English for years, but no one could really converse in it. So they really felt they needed native speakers, so they would bring in college kids and, like Ian, various people that would come over and start teaching English so that they could communicate better, and also sending their students out and their adults out to the U.S. to do exchanges. And this is sort of a national trend, and Yamanashi was really active in that, and Ichikawa Daimon, because the economy was a lot better then in Japan, and here we really had a lot of activity.
Let's speak about Kathy Brooker and the Young Ambassadors.
Yeah, the Young Ambassadors formed after the initial visit with the state Sister Cities group in 1987, and the high school formed the Young Ambassadors Club, which was headed by teacher Kathy Brooker, and they wanted to extensively learn more about Japan. They had requested the school to allow them as a group of students to study Japan.
And with some good support from administration.
Very good
Principal
support.
Craig Paul was really behind it.
Right, and they were very active, and they had a great time, and they participated a lot in all of the activities that we had with all of the exchanges. So we had high school kids all the time, and we, during that period also, from Sister Cities as a fundraiser and sort of an opportunity to extend culture to everyone, started our international dinner program, which incorporated foods from all of our sister cities, not just Japan, but Argentina, Russia, we did Poland. We had started our Ukrainian exchanges.
You guys did a lot of cooking and
Oh, yeah.
serving tables and cleanup.
And
I
the
remember
high
that.
school kids from Young
We did too.
Ambassadors did a lot of the work in terms of serving. You know, they did the serving. They would dress up in costumes from our sister cities and just had a really great time. This was a lot of fun, and sorry we don't have any photos of that. I actually got my camera disappeared at one of the international dinners, and all of my photos were gone. But it was really fun, and we produced a cookbook with recipes from all of our different countries, and we were very, very active. And if we had students in at the time, we had them participate as well.
I said third relationship. We should mention that in early 1989, a group of Russians came through, and rather precipitously, we signed a sister city agreement with Kislovodsk, Russia, in Iowa's sister state in Russia. And then, as I said, more methodically, 1990, we formed a sister city relationship with Ichikawa Daimon. Bob, you were president, and Dave Malloy, let's see. Dave Malloy was president 90-91. Bob, you were 91-92. So that was what, Russia and Japan mainly?
Yes,
maybe some Uruguay too?
Yeah, a little bit of Uruguay, but mostly Russia and Japan. And as Cindy said, everybody had a lot of fun. But, you know, we say, well, gee, we did this and we did that. I looked at it from an administrative point of view, the things that we were able to accomplish with volunteers. I mean, these people didn't get, actually many of the people contributed money to help the programs along because we didn't have any funding, basically.
For all that travel and eating and publicity,
Yes.
we had very
We
tiny
had no
budgets.
funding.
Yes,
funding, very small budgets.
I remember looking last night at one of the budgets. One of the balance was like $1,402 in the entire budget, and we talked about raising money and I think
supporting all of the sister
yeah, that
cities.
was for all the sister cities. That was Muscatine Sister Cities' entire operating budget at the time, and I think when you talk about support, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the Stanley Foundation. They were very active. Mary Steinmaus was very active, and she helped us and to get the backing of the Stanley Foundation. I'm not a member of the.
Stanley's always participated in our dinners.
Right. I'm not a member of the Stanley Foundation. I don't work for Stanley Engineering, but they certainly were a driving force behind this, and I think we're very fortunate. I think we collectively, Muscatine and Grand Junction, Colorado, are very fortunate to have the foundation involved and the people.
It's done a lot to create the atmosphere in
Yes.
this community
Oh,
that supports an activity
Yes,
like
I mean, a town of, I'm sure the Chamber of Commerce is 23,000, it's probably closer to 22 or 21,000, to have the opportunities and the resources. We spent some time at the Museum and Art Gallery today or yesterday, and just amazing the things that we have that, how many cities our size have paintings by Matisse and Picasso and Grant Wood, and Dan's wife Jean and I spent some time with looking at the Grant Wood photos, and it's just amazing. But Sister Cities is even after 30 years, it's still a mind-boggling proposition, I think.
You speak of looking at the records last night. The plan for this series of videos it comes out of the Board of Directors of Sister Cities in celebrating our 30-year history. We said, wouldn't it be fun to do a series of TV shows on each of our relationships? What we discovered is we've had so many people take part over the years, pass the baton from one team to the next. There's really no one person. And I was around in those early days, and so people said, well, you can be our historian, you know these stories, but I don't over the years. And I have now been opening up the archives, let you guys look through some of the minutes and correspondence, old documents, records last night. And what I'm discovering, what strikes me, is that even though at any given time it seems like there are a few of us and not much money and daunting programs at work,
Excuse me.
that over the years I couldn't begin to guess how many hundreds of our local residents have taken part in hosting, in sending their kids to another country through this organization. I put in the picture of Ian Hillman because I think he's, if not Exhibit A, he's certainly a fine example of a young person who got involved in some of this activity and has made a career of it in one way or another.
Right.
We could think of others, but I mean...
But Ian certainly comes to mind. Yeah, he's a shining example, if you will.
He's still out there doing it. Gil Dietz, the former editor of the Muscatine Journal, still writes those pieces about where are they now. And a couple of years ago, he did a very nice piece on Ian, who now, of course, is a mid-level, mid-career Foreign Service officer.
That's mind-boggling. Muscatine, Iowa. What's a Muscatine? I've had people in Colorado. I've had people ask me, "What's a Muscatine?" And they have. Well, I tell them, it's a unique name, and
you are both natives. I meant to say that at the beginning. You guys grew up here.
Right, we did. And what's really interesting, you live in a community, it doesn't matter whether it's Muscatine or Grand Junction, Colorado, or Wausau, Wisconsin, you get bored with your community. You live in it, you take everything for granted, and you think, okay, this is really a boring town. But when you host international guests, what you find is that you're looking at your community through different eyes. The people that come here, oh my gosh, Mark Twain lived here. Oh my gosh, there's the river. They know more about the river, Mark Twain, all of the history than we did because we just kind of put it aside and didn't think too much about it. So it makes you view your community in a totally different light, and it opens up your mind to what you have, and you really appreciate it. And you get to know more about the history. Bob just loves the history, so does Dan. And it's been just a real great experience from that perspective. And the other thing that I found when I was working with Sister Cities, because we had no budget, basically, we had Zippo budget, and we had to really try to get a lot of stuff done with very little money. One of my goals was to try to involve as many kids as possible, and not necessarily from the higher upper class, middle class community. I really felt it was very important to take students, young adults, middle school students, high school students, to give them the opportunity to go to foreign countries so that they could learn that other people are very similar to them, that they live the same way, they have a lot of the same goals and aspirations for their kids. It's not a mystery for them. You don't have to fear these people because you don't know them. And the problem was always a barrier of no one has enough money to send their kid on a trip like this for 2 weeks or a month to Japan. I mean, that's a lot of money when you look down and try to figure it out. And so through Sister Cities, we were able to ensure that our students did not have to pay lodging or meals the whole entire time. It was provided by homestays. We did the same for their students. I found great.
That's the magic.
Yeah.
That's how it works. We reciprocate and keep the costs down on both
Right,
sides.
you do. You offer the same thing to them, whether it's Russia, whether it's Japan, whether it's Argentina.
China's our bright, shiny new thing.
And China,
Yes.
China is, and what I find, a lot of people stay in their community, and in order to expand the horizons and the thought process, let people have these opportunities to meet people, to learn how they live, and to really know about their history and their culture. And by doing this, you have to find a way to support it, and since we didn't have the money, I found great ways to work with the airlines to get really reduced airfare for these kids so that you could go to Japan. At one time, I was able to finagle a trip, round trip, for $300 for everybody.
Wow.
And I mean, the first time I went, it cost $1,700, and I thought, this is crazy. So working with the airlines and with having these student populations, I was able to really reduce fees. Every time I set it up, I could get a lower fee every time. So it made me feel that I was able to offer an opportunity to people who would not have gotten that opportunity as a student.
I was impressed for the first time, Cindy, going through these archives at how much paperwork you generated, or I should say how much has been saved for history of these projects that you did for 2 years. I know that you had a day job.
Oh yeah,
you must
full
have slept
time.
sometime.
And I had high school kids.
But what a lot of effort.
It was a lot of fun. It really was a lot.
It wasn't work for her, it was fun. That was the whole thing. When you do something that's fun, it doesn't enter the realm of work. You're having fun, and I think you're much more energized, and your energy level is much higher. And I had a wife during those couple of years. Sometimes we didn't always see one another, but I knew she was there. I'd read about it in the paper, so I knew she was there. But I think, from my perspective, I'm more of an administrator, and Cindy's more of a I don't want to say kid, but more socially contactable, and she enjoys talking to people, and her and in spite of what she says, her ability to read and write Japanese was critical to the later visits. And when people come in and she starts talking Japan, you could see these kids, they couldn't believe it. And I'm kind of an aside, I volunteer 2 days a week at the Colorado National Monument, and we get lots and lots of visitors from Japan, and when they walk in the door and I can say good afternoon or good morning, my name is, how are you in Japanese? Just a whole new world. And one recently we show a video, and there were 3 college girls come in. They were sauntering down the walkway, and I stuck my head out the door and I said, "Hayaka, hayaka," which means hurry up. And oh my, their faces lit up, and boy, they came like a streak. And it's those kinds of. Sometimes you're intangible, but that was definitely.
Well, and to advise us on culture and etiquette, we find very different cultural norms in some